Hi, everyone. I want to look more deeply at the current Mars Saturn square. There's so much in this transit around the poetic union of messiness and imperfection and the courage to just keep on going anyway. A lot of humility around what we can control and what we cannot control. I want to speak to a few core dynamics here. I shared in a recent short this idea that um, things like military organizations, external structures that are outside of ourselves but give really solid direction and purpose are some of the most organized and well structured systems in the world. Military, educational, religious organizations. This earlier today, I was hanging out at this compound. Compound's like the wrong word. It's a huge campus, like dozens of acres, of what used to be a school and a campus for people with developmental disabilities. It's closed down, but it's still being maintained. And it literally feels like I'm in a military complex. It was probably designed by the same, people that do military compounds. But what was amazing is the entire place is being groomed. Like all the lawn is cut, the property's being maintained. Like they don't really know what they're doing with it yet. There's a lot of talk about how to reinvent that place. Things like that. There's so much energy and intention put on maintaining the grounds. And we know this in our own lives. When we're oriented towards something that we determine as purposeful and meaningful, we're going to bring all of our energy together. We're having, guests over. Let's clean the house. Let's take a shower, right? Waking up for the job. If you're a professional, you're going to do the things that you do every morning to orient your mind and your body, get into a good alignment, and show up for your task. You'll probably want to be thoughtful around organization. Where are you putting your pens, your files? Is the desk cluttered? Anything that we are living in, anything that we're giving our life to in some way that requires our effort, our presence, where there's work to do, we're going to be um, giving daily attention to what we can call grooming, right? Tending to the details of whatever it is we're up to. And if we don't tend to those details, things become dysfunctional. I mean, imagine a military organization where the soldiers just woke up whenever they wanted to and there weren't any clear guidelines and structures to live by. It's very structured and regimented. This is, in a sense, one dimension of Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces can speak to larger institutions, structures, and authorities that give guidelines and rules for how to live, provide direction and guidance, such as a government or a military or an ashram or monastery, things like that. And it gives discipline. Our habits, Saturn, are conditioned and trained and structured and strengthened according to the guidelines and the guidance of this external structure. And hopefully, this structure, this thing that we're living by and giving our life to, is worth surrendering to. That's where we could have the issue of, fighting for your country. Saturn and Pisces, you're devoted to it. And you're going to do the right thing, Saturn, according to your nationalistic pride and devotion and love of your country. And then you get to a point where it's like, is this really worth it? Or, what am I really fighting for? So we have that dimension with Saturn and Pisces, which really does speak to what are we disciplining our long-term efforts. And I've spoken about this before in other interviews. I can post them in the link below. The other issue with Saturn and Pisces can easily be a sort of anarchy, a lack of structure, a lack of definition, a free flow. And in such a state, we're still going to be developing a habit in our mind. We're still going to be habituating a certain state of consciousness. Not disciplining ourselves is its own discipline. We're going to be building a pattern in some way, in one way or another. So Saturn and Pisces really speaks to what are we committing to long term? What is meaningful and holy enough that we're willing to devote time and space for long term cultivation? This is really actualized when you add Mars and Virgo. So the grooming element, the actual detail focus, you wake up, you make your bed, you shave, you take a shower, What are you eating? Are you cleaning up after yourself? What are your daily practices, your daily chores? What are you doing to help you to do the things that you want to do, right? How are you creating the grounds and organization in your life for your purpose? And this is the stress of Mars and Virgo opposite Saturn and Pisces. It can bring up really these two extremes. One, the sense of overwhelming busyness and stress relative to there being a lot of things to do, but not really feeling good about the things that we're doing. Lots of chores and tasks, but it brings up that greater existential question. Do I really want to be doing this? Do I love this? It brings us back to, why am I doing this? What's my goal? What's my long-term plan here? Is this really worth all of this life force? And the other is avoidance and neglect. So when we're not tending to our reality, a core Virgo issue, and this is exasperated with Saturn and Pisces, is things will just fall apart. A core archetype within Virgo is one of crisis. So crisis happens when any facet of our life, body, health, psychology, relationships, job, money, whatever, everything is being neglected to the point where over time that neglect will result in a increasingly dysfunctional reality, a dysfunctional state. And that dysfunctional state will eventually kind of work its way into the organs. It'll work its way into the core, into like the place where it really hits home the most. And then everything falls apart. There's a teaching in the Tao Te Ching, what's recent is easy to undo. Right? If I take care of things in the moment, right away, it's not going to build and fester. If I cook something and I take care of the pot right away, it's not going to get crusty, and then like tomorrow it's going to be harder to clean that pot. That's a very big and important Virgo lesson. And it speaks to just the humility of doing your job, doing what you got to do and moving on with it. But here's the issue with this Mars and Virgo opposite Saturn and Pisces. If we're waiting for purpose and meaning, if we're waiting for something to inspire us, to give us the motivation to show up for our life, either we're waiting for that opportunity, we're waiting for the thing to happen, right? Or the change to happen in your life, where we actually feel like, now I'm doing the thing that I really want to be doing. Now I'm going to take care of myself. Now I'm going to work on those projects that I've always wanted to work to. If we're waiting for something outside of ourselves to give us the permission, to give us the motivation and the meaning, then we're just not going to be doing anything. It's very, very easy. This can be exasperating, and really bringing this up, bringing our awareness to this. It's very easy to just neglect indefinitely tending to our lives. It's easy to endlessly procrastinate and put off doing the things that are really calling for us to give our attention, our devotion to. There's this poetic marriage and beauty and deep humility in learning that the bridge from the non-ideal conditions of our life right now, right? Be it our house or our health or our relationships or our job, right? Between that non-ideal reality where we don't like the way things are and this thing that we want, in the future, this is the ideal relationship. This is the ideal house that I want to live in. This is my dream job. Things that are not happening now, but we like, this is when I grow up, this is how I want to live. The bridge is keeping like the inspiration and the hope of that which you idealize alive, like honoring that, but bringing our full devotion and attention to the present moment, to our life conditions as they are right now. I want a home where there are no holes in the wall and everything's clean. It's made out of this material, where rats can't bite through it, and these kinds of counters that are made out of marble. That's great. It's just really beautiful to have like a strong vision and to know what you value and have that. But right now, patch the walls, take care of things as they are now, attend to the conditions of our life now as they are, show up for them. Because when we don't show up for them, we live in this imaginal place of what isn't, and we don't actually allow ourselves to grow. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and something about this man had a psychedelic experience early in life, and really saw that he was going to be a musician. He's going to play in front of tens of thousands of people and be really famous. And his friend said, start by playing in front of 10 people. Just start. And we often don't allow ourselves to start because we don't like the way our life is. We're not happy with our life. We're not happy with ourselves. And this is the point. This is where we find this deep humility and surrender and acceptance in the imperfection of our life, but the perfection of the moment. The imperfection from the point of view of, oh yeah, there are things that need fixing. It's not working out. There are a lot of adjustments, ongoing adjustments. Maybe the disillusionment of it not being what I want it to be. And there's more effort involved, more work involved. I got to do more than I wanted to. I wanted it to be easier, right? But also the perfection of the moment, which is just the moment. Just do the next thing. Do the next thing and don't make a big deal out of it. Don't make a big deal out of brushing your teeth, out of working out of cleaning your desk, out of doing the dishes, out of tending to that, part of the house where it's just cluttered and disorganized, tending to your emails, your files, like everything wants to be clarified. And this is how we do it. In the same way that dysfunction will manifest in the extremities and kind of work its way in, healing and bringing order and clarity to our life also starts on the outside. We start on the outside, right? When you wake up, we do the more superficial things, right? The small details, such as getting dressed, brushing our teeth, maybe taking a shower, doing our practices, making the bed, right? These are all preparations, getting our mind, body, system complex all aligned. Then we start the day. We do our work. We write the book. We do the session. We teach the class. We get involved in the larger long-term projects that are kind of growing and cultivating over time. We don't just jump into them. We create the grounds for it. And there's a sort of excitement and engagement when we really think of it that way. We see, okay, I'm wanting to start over again. Yesterday, okay, that was hard, or I didn't do so great with my diet or with sleep or with habits and management. Okay, today's a new day. They say the best day to start was yesterday. The second best day to start is now. And so if you start now, tomorrow, you'll feel so grateful for yesterday. And we're just learning. We're just learning how to create habits that are healthy long term. The deepest Virgo humility is just to say, I'm going to start now. Again, what we learn, we cultivate more wisdom over time. If we try to rush to get everything fixed and right, we tend to then get stuck in a sort of materialism. And we forget the greater meaning and purpose of life in the first place. So Saturn and Pisces speaks to, there is deep wisdom and beauty and holiness that we're here to anchor in this world. And we are to use it purposefully with meaning, with devotion. There's something meaningful and deeply promising and forgiving about this incarnation. I think the more we come to terms with the opportunity that we're given, the more we soberly realize we have a responsibility to decide, to choose, what am I doing with my mind? Because there's not going to be a moment where just things work out. We're not going to get to where we want to go spiritually, emotionally, whateverly, without really cultivating ourselves, without cultivating our mind. That's the sobering realization of Saturn and Pisces of, oh, the Messiah isn't going to come and save me. In fact, we can say some of the deepest teachings that the greatest teachers have ever offered is in the way that they point us back to the fact of our divinity, the fact of our agency, the fact of our freedom, and recognizing the truth of our freedom and our agency and our holiness only inspires us to examine what does it mean to claim the truth of that. If I am truly that powerful, I need to learn to think differently. I need to learn how to live my life and engage with time with so much more spiritual maturity. What are the thoughts that aren't serving me? What are the younger thoughts that are not actually respecting all that I actually am? What are the ways in which I'm living in a dishonorable state to the unspeakable holiness that I am. And we don't bypass our conditions and our present moment reality to some sort of transcendent ideal. We recognize that we're practicing living with respect to our freedom and our agency and our divinity by bringing and applying that into our life experience as it is now. So I recently had this experience where some parts of my body have been in pain. Now, they've always kind of been a little bit uncomfortable, but as I've been working out a lot, and building certain muscle groups, it's kind of exasperated an existing imbalance. And I was talking to a friend who pointed out, oh yeah, this over here is actually very weak and stiff. And it was so exciting for me to hear him say that. He said, yeah, stop doing this particular exercise and focus on this. You need to strengthen that part more. It was so exciting because learning different workout practices and exercises and different tools and whatnot has been really empowering and healing for me. And then kind of reaching this edge where this existing dysfunctional dynamic is there, an imbalance, and it's been painful. And that's leading me to another place of growth and awareness. It's like I'm becoming aware of some part of my my structure that's weak, that needs development. And I love being able to face an obstacle, face a challenge, and it's uncomfortable. Like, what does it feel like to be doing push-ups and for your arm to hurt? Right? To be putting your arm behind your back and it pinches. That's not a comfortable feeling. And Virgo, on a more unconscious level, Mars and Virgo will just want to push through it. When little snafus happen and things break down, it's uncomfortable because there's a loss of control. And yet the learning is there is something that wants to be healed here if we engage it. We can't just push it. That Mars energy, which can be unconscious in terms of just pushing through, that'll create only more crisis. It says there's something that's being neglected, creating this state of imbalance. And if we can tend to that, if we can learn about that, that's going to open a lot more healing. And I love this because the body is sort of a reflection of the mind. So when I'm able to identify a specific area of my body that wants some attention, I'm curious to learn more about the anatomy and to really get more into understanding the physiology, because what that reflects for me is this whole area of self-development that maybe isn't very familiar to me, like some facet of my own inner being that wants to be seen, that wants more attention. And I can intuitively feel that. So when we meet the obstacles, we're going to learn something new. Virgo is always attending to all the details of the whole, right? The entire organization, the entire holistic organization, and all the different facets of it that allows it to function more. And as we engage one thing, it's going to sort of pull up roots and show us, oh, here's another fundamental issue. And meeting the reality of dysfunction is just pointing to where something's been festering for a long time, to not be overwhelmed by it. And to say, okay, there's a skill set here. There are tools, there's awareness, there's knowledge I don't yet have, and I'm going to meet it. And that's going to actually bring more strength. I'm going to cultivate more agency, more knowledge, more wisdom, become a more integrated person by meeting these places of dysfunction. And this is where we can actually heal what I think is a sort of normalized, socially, it's a normalized pattern of normalizing dysfunction, right? Living in a state of dysfunction where things are chaotic and dysfunctional and painful and out of alignment, but we just work through it anyway. We're not necessarily yielding to it and engaging it, like self-correcting and learning. We just allow it. It's like doing lots of work on a perpetually messy desk, as the structure of one's consciousness is sort of wired for a certain level of dysfunction. And so we've just become used to living in that dysfunction. Like the kitchen's always dirty, the house is always messy, there's always laundry lying around, you're always kind of getting sick and it's kind of on the verge of collapse, right? We might all be able to relate to our normalized dysfunction. Let us not believe that that's what our life is for. We're more powerful than that. But we can't just replace the normalized dysfunction with this ideal dream world that we think we're going to get to at some point. we work with it. We make small improvement. That's all we can do. We make small improvements, and it's humbling. We're all in our own ways, we can all identify with the psychology of addiction, but this is a core piece within the world of addiction healing and recovery. It's about realizing this at the core is about taking responsibility for the negative effects of my living. And when I'm in denial, I'm not aware of the dysfunction that I'm creating, and we can lie to ourselves and say, oh, it doesn't really matter, it's not a big deal. And it doesn't seem that way. And we can get by for years living in dysfunction, but it catches up. It always catches up. Everything catches up eventually. And maybe we think that's normal, or maybe we'll just say, oh, that's just conditions of my life. It's easy to deflect responsibility for what we're actually creating. So this is a time for really appreciating there's joy, there's purpose, there's meaning, and we can get back on track with the things that we want to really be focusing on, but to recognize that really here will take us there. To do what we really want to do, we have to really meet the ways in which we're subconsciously sabotaging ourselves from just creating a ground of simplicity. Like a military organization, you know where everything goes, you're waking up, you're getting dressed, there's purpose. Now, we don't have to live in that regimented, strict way. We don't have to give our power away to some other structure that maybe is overly controlling or that we don't believe in. But there's something about what do we need to do to convince our mind that it's worth waking up and starting over again? That's why that Saturn and Pisces inspiration is often going to take a soul, especially if there's been sort of a lot of lack of definition. One might find themselves at some point really wanting something to surrender to. Like, give me a teacher, give me a meditation practice, give me a ritual, give me a tradition. That might be really important for us. I think it's important for all of us in different ways. And Mars might really instigate that. However this is showing up for us, what do we need to do to convince our mind, to convince our thinking that our life is worth showing up for, that it's important, in the same way that people will fight wars and be incredibly organized and thoughtful about every detail of their lives. Can we bring that much care and attention to our lives to really recognize and honor and trust the importance and significance of who we are and what's going on and what's possible, the depth of our own life purpose and healing, and how our work ripples and is shared, always shared with so many other beings. So this is really about believing in ourselves, being willing to start now. Here's a song that I'd like to share with you. I'm starting over again. I'm starting right where I am. It is all Every time I make a choice, every time I grow, it happens here and now as I